Hey, Sully, how are you this morning?
Pretty good, man. How many Diet Cokes in are we? What kind of performance can we expect?
Top notch as always, hopefully.
To be expected in the middle of football season, McGarry. I mean,
exactly. You have to be on your game this time of year.
This ain't the middle of August, man. We're starting to talk about PowerPoint, so that it's
right.
It's time to bring the A game.
What happened? You got to digest what happened last night, and kind of look forward to what's going to happen today, and then also take a sneak peek at some of the big games that are coming next week. Because like you said, most teams have 5-6 games in now, and it's getting to that point where it's time to look at that overall playoff picture. Who's in, who's out, who needs a win here, who's who could be going where. So it's an exciting time of year.
And the PowerPoints really make it interesting because you look at teams like Holy Spirit with maybe not a ton of PowerPoints. They might be one of the best teams in that non-public B, but who knows if they'll get a home game for the playoffs if they keep winning because of the PowerPoints. And you look at a team like Vineland, undefeated, and they barely have any PowerPoints because the teams that were on their schedule basically have no wins.
Yeah, actually, and Pleasantville, another team kind of in that situation, a team with a good record that is going to have, low PowerPoints and stuff like that. But that's kind of the West Jersey Football League, philosophy when it's scheduled. When they did the schedule, programs like Vineland and Pleasantville were kind of struggling. And, so their crossover games aren't against teams with, outstanding records. But, Vineland last year managed to get a home game in the playoffs, and they've got some big games coming up. They've got, Clearview today. They've got Atlantic City next Friday, which is a big game. They've got St. Augustine coming up down the road. So, Vineland will have an opportunity to sort of increase their PowerPoints a lot in the next couple of weeks.
And, Mike, probably one of the craziest things about New Jersey high school football is the non-publics. And you may have a team from South Jersey that has 4 or 5 wins that might not make the playoffs, and a winless team could even sneak through because those teams in North Jersey, they get like double the PowerPoints if you go and play a Don Bosco or Bergen Catholic.
Right, and they're also guaranteed spots in the playoffs, too, regardless of whether they win or lose. So I think right now you look in state non-public 4, St. Augustine, after the loss last night, is battling for the playoffs. And I believe it's St. Augustine, Paul VI, and Notre Dame, those 3 teams basically battling for one spot in the state non-public 4 playoffs because most of the other spots are guaranteed because that's just the way the system is set up. A lot of debate about that, a lot of debate about, the schedule those teams play, just how good those teams are. But that's the situation right now.
Yeah, it almost, I guess they try to encourage the teams to go and play, teams like Bosco and St. Peter's Prep and Bergen Catholic. And you could be a team up there and schedule those 3 teams and lose 60-0 every week and still get, 150 PowerPoints.
Right, and I think they're also trying to take those 5 or 6 teams up there, which are not only the best teams in New Jersey year in and year out, but among the best teams in the country. And if they go play a national schedule, I think 2 years ago there was a year where Paramus Catholic went 3-5 and kind of missed the playoffs. A 3-5 Paramus Catholic team could probably beat a 7-1 or an 8-0 team by 3 or 4 touchdowns, basically. Yeah. So I think that's what they were trying to avoid too. A team, I think Don Bosco might be struggling a little bit this season, but still, if Don Bosco played the teams in South Jersey, they win the game by 2 to 3 touchdowns. So I think that's what they're also trying to avoid is having those non-public teams sort of, go 2-4 or 3-5 or whatever and miss the playoffs when obviously, they're a pretty good football team.
Yeah, because they're trying to play these national games, get some TV time, get some exposure for their program, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And not a lot of New Jersey teams want to play them. So also they're going out and playing, a national schedule. So I think that's the theory behind it. They didn't want to punish those North Jersey non-public football powers for playing national schedules. They wanted to encourage teams to try to take a shot at them in-state. But overall, just the I remember when Mark Reardon was the coach at St. Augustine Prep. He kind of acknowledged that, hey, a 3-5 Paramus Catholic, a 3-5 Don Bosco is probably better than, a 7-1 team anywhere else in the state, so they probably deserve to get in the playoffs.
Talk with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. And Mike, really interesting game you and I were both at last night out at St. Augustine Prep. You had all kind of backstory lines with Charlie Roman coming back to St. Augustine Prep, Josh Zamat, the quarterback for Holy Spirit. He was the starting quarterback for Prep last year, transferred over to Holy Spirit. So there was a lot of ruckus there early before the game even started with the Richland Rowdies trying to get in Zamat's head and all that kind of just a really fun type of high school atmosphere to be around.
Yeah, well, it's always fun in any sport when Holy Spirit and St. Augustine get together. It's a huge rivalry no matter what the sport. And last night's game had even more intrigue. And like you said, Josh Zamat was the story before the game, and he was the story after the game. He ran for 146 yards. He ran for 2 touchdowns. He made the game-clinching interception when St. Augustine was driving down the field for a potential winning touchdown. Zamat picks a pass off at the 5-yard line with about a minute to go, and then, to clinch the victory for the Spartans, and a big win for Spirit. Now they're 5-1, and St. Augustine, on the other hand, is 3-3. Obviously St. Augustine is better than their 3-3 record, kind of last-minute losses to Holy Spirit and Millville, 2 teams with a combined 10-1 record. And so a tough loss for the Hermits, but Josh Zamat was the story going into the game, and he was the story coming out of it.
And it's funny, each week we keep saying, okay, that was his signature win. The next week he leads another comeback. That was his signature win. Yeah, but and just proves what kind of player he is, and just an outstanding young man. He's always there to talk to, whether it's a win or a loss, and really the type of kid you want leading your program, whatever football team you're playing for.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, he leads that great comeback against Delsea. Last week, he leads the comeback against Pleasantville. Last night, gets a win with a lot of hype going around the game. Like you said, a lot of stuff swirling around the game. He's able to maintain his focus and help Holy Spirit win. But I was really impressed with the last couple of days, and I saw Holy Spirit play Pleasantville last week and Holy Spirit playing St. Augustine last night, is their ability to run the football. I mean, they ran for 340 yards last night. They really took control of the game with a 99-yard drive in the third quarter, 13 plays, all runs. Elijah Gray back there running back, Lee Dawson at running back, and Zamat can also run too. That's how they kind of took over the Pleasantville game in the second half last week, and they did the same thing against St. Augustine. That's how you win in the postseason. You play defense and you run the football, and Spirit kind of has that recipe going right now.
And Josh almost has his own traveling game day there. They got, the family all comes out. They all got the sweatshirts. They're tailgating. It's kind of a neat thing to see.
Exactly, and kind of as I wrote today in the Press of Atlantic City, it was kind of a familiar scene because they did the same thing last year, and they were at St. Augustine. Only last year he was wearing the St. Augustine blue. Last night he was wearing the Holy Spirit white. So kind of a familiar scene out there, and a big win for Holy Spirit, who's 5-1. Like I kind of wrote in the paper today, the Atlantic County non-public schools, St. Augustine, St. Joe, Holy Spirit, they like nothing better than to beat each other, especially in football. And, Holy Spirit had that loss to St. Joe earlier in the season. You don't want to go 0-2, against your non-public rivals in Atlantic County. So Holy Spirit gets to 1-1 with that win, sort of balances the ledger with that win against St. Augustine last night.
Mike, when are you going to jump on my Ocean City bandwagon, give Harry Feifel some love and the boys?
We love Harry Feifel in Ocean City. They're trying. I think they're going for their first playoff berth since 2008.
Yep.
Another big win last night over Middle Township to get to 4-1, and a big game coming up this Friday night. They host Mainland Regional. That we talk about how big a rivalry in every sport, St. Augustine Holy Spirit is. You flip that over, and there's almost nothing bigger than Mainland Ocean City. So those are two. That's a huge rivalry and a huge game for Ocean City, because PowerPoint-wise, Ocean City is one of those teams that they're going to need, to win just about every game to get into the playoffs. So they can't afford any slip-ups here if they're to get their first playoff berth since 2008, because after Mainland, they've got, a Lower Cape May team that has one win this season, and then they'll play, St. Joe, which, St. Joe, we can talk about them in a second, what they did up in Allentown last night. I mean, a St. Joe football team that just gets better and better, every time you turn around. So Ocean City playing well, looking for that first playoff spot since 2008, but, a big game, against Mainland next Friday. They can't afford to slip up.
Mike, the Ocean City Mainland rivalry is the kind that whittles down Christmas lists.
Right, exactly.
Last year you had
huge.
Last year you had cousins playing against each other. Last year, Liam Bergman and taking on the Bergman boys from Mainland. So even families can get a little salty, with each other over that game.
Right. Everybody on the Mainland side of the field knows somebody on the Ocean City side of the field, and vice versa. In the 90s and early 2000s, those games decided league championships and South Jersey titles. It's still a huge rivalry. Remember, Ocean City won last year. I think it was the first time in 7 or 8 years that they had beaten Mainland, and they celebrated like they had won a state championship. And obviously another big game for an Ocean City team that needs every win it can get if it's to get in the playoffs for the first time, I think, in 8 or 9 years.
Talk with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. Check out all his work, pressofac.com. And Mike, we had Deshaun Birch of St. Joe on here before yourself. And, man, this offensive line for St. Joe is just destroying people. I mean, they're just imposing their will every game, racking up points, touchdowns, yards. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, well, last night they go up to Allentown, who's the defending Central Jersey Group 4 champion. That's a big public school up in, the western edge of Monmouth County, sort of on the Monmouth-Mercer County border there. They score 56 points. Jada Byers scores 5 touchdowns. It's a St. Joe team that is just rolling right now, undefeated, and, has a big game next week at Cedar Creek on Saturday, big West Jersey Football League division game right there. And, you kind of wondered about St. Joe before the season started, and it's a testament to their program. They had their streak of 7 straight state titles stop. They lost in the state semifinals last year to a Mater Dei team that went on and won the state championship. They finished 7-4. For most programs, that would be, mark that year down as one of the best in school history. For St. Joe, because their standards are so high, it was a big disappointment. That's just a testament to their program. You kind of wondered, which way were they going to go this season? Were they going to take another step sort of backwards a little bit? Was it going to take them a while to get back to where they were in previous years? Well, the answer is, they're right back. And Jada Byers, just really 5 touchdowns last night, one of the most dynamic players in South Jersey, really getting better, a sophomore getting better every time he touches the football. And, just kind of wondering right now just how good St. Joe is going to be, because they get better every week they go out there. And the scary part about it is, I think 99.9% of the team comes back next year. So they might be a year away from being really, really good. And they're already really, really good this year. And they obviously opened some eyes with, 56 points against Allentown last night.
Mike, I think sometimes we take for granted just the career and what Coach Sacco is able to do with that program. He's like a little genius, a little just mastermind. And sometimes we take for granted because they've been so successful. But this guy, man, he can flat out coach some football.
Yeah, I mean that's what we talk about when I say 7-4 last season and a loss in the state semifinals as a disappointment. You act like the sky is falling. When most programs would say, "Hey, we just had a great year. That's something to build on." And again, they were able to get it right back. Really are playing well. And you mentioned up front, Deshaun Birch, Sean Morris, the Lomax kid, Wisdom, Quashi, the big kid up front. I mean, they are just huge up front, and they are just manhandling people, and that's a big key to their season. And they've got some big games coming up. I mean, they've got Cedar Creek coming up. They've got the Ocean City team coming up, and then they got the the state non-public playoffs also with a possible rematch with Holy Spirit, and of course defending champion Matter Day from up in Monmouth County looming. So, I know Coach Sacco always talks about one of the things he likes is to be practicing when the Christmas lights are on houses, and that late November, early December. That means you had a good season. When you go into practice and you're walking past houses with the Christmas lights on, you're having a good season. And
exactly,
St. Joe's kind of headed in that direction again. Mike,
what should we be on the lookout for today?
Well, I'm actually headed up to your old stomping grounds. I'm going to look for the Sully Memorial Hall of Fame bust up there at Lacey Township. I'm going up there to see a good 4-1 Barnegat Township team play a 3-2 Lacey Township team. And again, two teams that kind of need a win to look for the playoffs. So, and both teams with some good players. Barnegat has a nice tight end in Sean Morris. I saw Lacey play Pinelands early in the year. They got a good quarterback in Colton Claus. And Lacey always has a good running back, as you know. Seems like, that's kind of tailback you there.
Yep.
Jason Gerasi is the man this year. So it should be an entertaining game up in Ocean County. And the other game to sort of look at today, Vineland plays this afternoon, coming off their bye last week. They host a Clearview team that I think is 0-4 or 0-5, but Vineland looking to get a win and build some momentum. They go in and play Atlantic City next Friday night in what will be an exciting game.
Mike, you'll have to take a walk inside the school, down the gym hallway, about right before the next hallway, up on your right-hand side, the Golden Paw Award winners for 1990. You'll see my name there.
All right, I will definitely take a look. Maybe I'll take a look past that and maybe give it a little nod.
In a small way, I'm a part of Lacey lore.
Right, there you go. There you go.
Appreciate it as always, Mike. Enjoy your day of high school football, and we'll catch up with you next week, and we'll kind of break down some of the playoff fates of these teams and see where they stack up.
Absolutely, Sully. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
See you later.
That was Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City.